We are continuing on Masechet Succah, and Daf Yud Bet, Amud Aleph. You're starting the Mishnah in the middle of the Amud. Today's Amud is being learned as a Zchut Refuah Shlema for Esther Bracha Bat Chaya, for Nisim ben Miriam, Rachel Simcha Bat Nahid. Should all have Bezat Hashem Refuah Shlema. Amen. Also should be a Zchut for Aliyat Neshama of my grandfather, whose yortzeit is today, Avraham ben Ezra, alav shalom. His Neshama should have an aliyah. This week's learnings of the community have been graciously dedicated by Dayan family, by Shea family, and by Cohen families. Should be an ultimate zchut for all their mishpachot, bezat Hashem, amen. Okay, great. So we're starting another Mishnah, really following the previous Mishnah and Daf Yud Aleph of what you can and what you cannot put on top of the schach, on top of the sukkah. So we had the prohibition, the isur after of not being able to put the wine on the sukkah, growing and attached to the ground. And now we have chavile kash vechavile etzim vechavile zradin. If you have bundles of straw, wood, of any type of bundles of items that grow from the ground, it's not necessarily things that are intrinsically pasul. They're all kasher for sichuch. Had they not been in a bundle, there would be lechatchila kasher, no problem. And yet the Mishnah says, en mesachechin b'hem. You cannot use them as a schach. Vekulan sheitiran ksherot, but if you open them, then it's kasher. So the problem is really the bundle. We have to explain what the problem exactly is with having bundles as schach. Vekulan ksherot litfanot. They're all kasher for the fanot. Now again, this is the Mishnah that introduces to us that things that are pasul for the schach, they're kasher for the fanot, because when we say schach, when we say sukkah, we are referring to the schach. The defanot we learned, if you remember earlier on Daf Vav, and Rashi actually alludes to it over here, that we learned the issue of defanot that you need 2.5 or 3.5 walls, from the fact that it says besukat, besukat, besukot. Two of them is written chaser, the other one is maleh. So you learn 2.5 or 3.5 defanot that you need. That's where you need the we learn the defanot from. So any time that it says sukkah, it's talking about the schach. The defanot we learn from a different place. So therefore, for defanot, anything pretty much that is solid is going to be kasher. You could have it from cement, you could have it from metal, you could have it from mekabel tum'ah. All those things are kasher so long as it's considered a wall. If it's solid, if it's not movable, then it's going to be kasher, as we're going to discuss the details of these halachot in the later Mishnah. So says the Gemara, we have to still understand why you can't put the bundles on top of the schach. So Amar Rabbi Yaakov says, Shamit mined Rabbi Yochanan. I heard two halachot from Rabbi Yochanan. Tarti. Chadaha, one is this Mishnah, this halacha of our Mishnah, that you cannot use bundles for schach. That's one halacha that I heard from Rabbi Yaakov, the idach, and the other one is hachotet begadish laasot lo sukkah eina sukkah. That when you dig into a pile of hay, you have a massive mountain of hay stalk. If you have this and you dig into it, creating a halal, creating a hollow area that has the minimum size of sukkah at the very least. So you have 10 tfachim height and 7 by 7 tfachim of space. So that should be a sukkah that's kasher, right? The walls are solid. The schach, your material of the top is hay, which is fine. right? It's gidulo min karka. It's not mekabel tum'ah. It is detached from God. You check all the boxes. And says Rabbi Yochanan, that is not a sukkah. It's absolutely not acceptable. It is pasul. So that's the second halacha that Rabbi Yaakov learned from Rabbi Yochanan. Chada mishum gezerat otzar ve'chada mishum ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui. One of them was because of gezerat otzar, he explained, and one of them because of the isur of ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui. In other words, Rabbi Yochanan said these two halachot, that you cannot have bundles as your schach, and you cannot dig into a haystack to create a sukkah. And he said one of them is because of ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui, and the other one is because of what we call gezerat otzar. We're going to explain that in just a moment. Velo yedana, says Rabbi Yaakov, I don't remember which one was which. I just remember I heard these two halachot from Rabbi Yochanan, and the reasoning behind one of them was gezerat otzar, and the other one was ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui. Now, what is gezerat otzar? Says the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, nichzianan. Let us try to determine which one of them Rabbi Yochanan passled and said it's invalidated because of gezerat otzar, and which one of them is because of ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui. The Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Now we have another memra in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that explains the reasoning behind these, and says the Gemara, he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, you know, Rabbi Chia bar Abba is one of the main students of Rabbi Yochanan, and he explained, he brought our Mishnah, and that you cannot use bundles of hay or bamboos or wood. You cannot use them as schach. And Rabbi Yochanan explained, you know why? Because pe'amim she'adam ba min hasadeh. I want you to, for a moment, step out of your shoes and imagine the life of 2,000 years ago. People are, again, up until 100 years ago, 98% of the economy was from agriculture. So people had fields, and people brought stuff from the field. So you come home, and you're bringing something from the field. So you're bringing bundles of wood, because you need it in your fireplace. You're bringing bundles of straw for your animal. You're bringing stuff that you need at home. This was like a daily activity. So what do? The first thing, you have to understand the reality. Nowadays we have everything coming in packages nicely, right? People think like hay grows into a bag of plastic, you know. But back then it was real life. So if you don't dry them well, they'll grow mold in no time. If they have any moist inside, and it's going to be dark because you bundled them together, the whole thing is going to go bad in moments, in a matter of days. So the first thing they would do is they will put it in a high place, and that would absorb the most sunlight, like the most sun rays. What is that? You either have to climb up and go put it on the aliyah, on top of the rooftop, or you put it on the structure of your sukkah. If you had, imagine a gazebo, a structure that is high up, right? Then you would put it on top of there, because in every hour of the day it would get sunlight. So you just drop the bundles on top as you come from work and you're tired. It's okay, let it dry up. And as the life would have it, you get busy. And before you know it, it's 2 weeks before Sukkot. So you know what? Let it just be up there. I need anyway schach. These are kasher schach. Bundles of wood. It's bundles of straw. Right? It's kasher. And you would just leave it there. What's the problem with that? That is Isur Doraita. I mean, in a Doraita level, that is not kasher. Not the Rabbanan. Why is this not valid midoraita? Because you never made a schach. You never made a schach. You put it there not for shade. You put it there. You have to be Sukkot, Chaka Sukkot Ta'aseh. You have to make the schach for shade. You put it there as otzar, as a form of storage. And that is pasul. With your mindset of saying, gee, I could use this for schach. It's not going to make it schach. Still a otzar. Therefore, that would be a psul midoraita. It's a doraita level of being invalid. So it says,
even according to Beit Hillel, right?
According to everybody, right? This is not made for shade. And we made sure to say in that Mishnah that so long as it's made for shade, then you're good to go. If it's an old sukkah, more than 30 days, but you are making a structure for shade, that would be kasher, right? So says the Gemara, you go and put it on top of the structure of your sukkah, these bundles, solely for the purpose of drying them out. And then weeks later, days later, you decide, you know what, I'm just going to leave them up there for schach. And the Torah said, you have to make the schach. We can't just decide on something that was not a schach to be the schach. And that would be asur. This is gezrat ha'otzar. In other words, why do we call it gezrat ha'otzar? Gezrat means it's a enactment midrabanan. It means that even if that's not the story, I have my bundles on top of my sukkah, and 2 weeks before Sukkah, 2 days before Sukkah, I say, you know what? I'm going to make this schach. So I go up there, I pick them up and put them down for, in order to have schach. That's kasher, midoraita. No question about that, right? Or I lechatchila just schlep up my bundles on top of the schach and I set them up for, that's also kasher. But because it could lead to the first scenario, that the guy dropped them up there for drying out. And then he just decided to use them anyways for schach. Because one could come to the second, Chazal made a gezerah, said you never could use bundles for schach, never. Even though that had it not been because of this concern of leaving already existing bundles on top of your structure of sukkah, if it had not been because of that worry, that concern, using bundles for schach is kasher, no problem. So that's why it's gezerat ha'otzar. Because you may lead to a case that you left it up there anyways for drying out and you just used it for schach. We don't even allow you to go up there and place them to begin with for schach. That's a gezerah, midrabanan. Because it could lead to a case of doraita, that you had put them there not for schach, but for drying, and then you decided to just leave them for schach, which would be invalidated from the Torah level, right? Okay? That's Gezrat HaOtzar. Says the Gemara. So now we know which one Rabbi Yochanan holds, because leaving bundles on top of your sukkah is Gezrat HaOtzar. And now go back to what Rabbi Yaakov said. What did Rabbi Yaakov say in the name of Rabbi Yochanan? I heard 2 halachot from Rabbi Yochanan, said Rabbi Yaakov. One was our Mishnah, this whole bundle business, and the other one was someone that digs inside a mountain of haystack and creates a sukkah inside of it. Carves in, or carves out, a sukkah. That now should be for Ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui. Why is that Ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui? Very simple. Because you create, remember what the Ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui problem is? You create a schach without having touched the schach ever. You have a mountain of haystack, imagine, right? In Baltimore, we used to do this with snow, right? The kids. You know, you would have like a foot and a half of snow, and when they would pile to clean up the driveways, then you would have a massive pile, and the kids would go and make a house inside of it. Like, you know, they would dig out an entire area inside the snow. So you could do that with haystack too. So if a person did that, the schach of your sukkah, the ceiling of your sukkah, did you ever touch it even? You never touched it. it turned into a schach because you carved in an area inside of it. It was never ever put there as a schach. That is ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui, right? You have to make a schach. It can't automatically turn into being a schach without ever a hand of human being having touched it for schach. So it says the Gemara. Now we know the two halachot of Rabbi Yochanan and the reason of each one of them. Says the Gemara. Mideha mishum gezerat otzar, ha mishum ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui. The second one, the case of digging into a gadish, into a haystack, is going to be because of ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui. Rabbi Yaakov, first wide line, Rabbi Yaakov, hach de Rabbi Chia bar Abba lo shem yaleh. The reason Rabbi Yaakov didn't know which one is which is because he did not hear this comment of his peer Rabbi Chia bar Abba that said it in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Fine. Amar Rav Ashi, says the Gemara, Rav Ashi challenged this with a very simple question. Atu chavile kash vechavile etzim mishum gezerat otzar ika mishum ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui leka. The bundles, the case of the bundles, also could be a problem of ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui, because remember what we said. What is the concern? The concern is you come from field, you drop all your bundles on top of the structure of sukkah to dry them out, and then you go. Now I have a question for the chevra here. Is that a schach? Absolutely not. I put it up there to dry them. It's not a schach. When I 2 weeks later decide, you know what, I'm just going to use this as schach, leave them up there, use them as schach. At this moment, it became schach, but with no action. That is ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui. The definition of ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui is I turned something into schach without touching it. With creating a schach without actually being involved with the schach, the material of the schach themselves. So it says Rav Ashi, that is ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui also. It's a deoraita level. Why do you say it's a gezerah? Gezerah means it's the Rabbanan. This case is not the Rabbanan. This case would be completely pasul midoraita. So why do you tell me that this is because of Gezerat Otzar? Could be mamash ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui. And also, says Rav Ashi, v'achotet begadish, and the other case of digging into a haystack, says the Gemara, mishum ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui, ika mishum Gezerat Otzar leka. You are telling me that that's only because of ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui? Let me give you a case that's not ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui. You ready, guys? You made this, you dug inside, now you have mamash, a tunnel inside this haystack pile, and then you're like, you know what? Let me make this mamash lechatchila. I asked my rabbi said you can't do this, ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui, blah, blah, blah. So you go on top, you pick up the bundles of hay that are on top, right? You put them, you say, blah, 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 boom, you put it down. Now it's kasher, right? Well, it's kasher midoraita because no longer ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui, but still is asur midorabanan because of gezerat otzar. Why would this be any different than gezerat otzar? This is like classic, like mamash classic case of gezerat otzar. Someone looks at this and says, oh, you could dig inside a gadish and make sukkah. Gavaldik. I'll do that next time. You're going to mix it up, and that is gezerat otzar. So says Rav Ashi, both of them are both. Who told you to choose a case of the oraita by gadish and choose a case the Rabbanan by the bundles? The bundles could be a scenario, the oraita, in the case that you actually put them up there for drawing up. And the case of Gadish could be midrabanan if you actually picked it up and put it down for schach, the top part, right? So both of them could be two different scenarios. I could have a world in which Gadish is the oraita, bundles are the Rabbanan, which is what you're saying, Rabbi Yochanan is saying. I could have a case that's exactly the opposite, that the bundles are midoraita and the gadish is midrabanan. Right? I could set it up however I want based on what the story was. If the story was this guy dug in and didn't touch the schach, you're right, it's the oraita. But if the story is the guy dug in to the gadish, to the pile, and then he moved the top part and put it back on, then it's no longer the oraita. The problem is only the rabbanan, it's not gadish, and vice versa, by the bundles. So says the Gemara, you're correct. You could say that, but we have a very solid reason why we learned the case of the bundles to be midrabanan, and the case of the haystack to be the oraita. Says the Gemara. Let's learn this together. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Lecha. Rabbi Yochanan would answer, I am reading the language of the Mishnah. Remember what the Mishnah said? Let's take a look. Chavile kash v'chavile etzim v'chavile zeradin. All these bundles that we mentioned, right? What's the language? Ein misachachin b'hem. You shouldn't make a schach with them. That means, what's the case? I am trying to put them on for schach. That's ein misachachin b'hem. I'm going up there, I want to drop a bundle as a schach. I'm saying the whole L'Shem Yichud, I have my hat and jacket, right? I'm doing it, and still you should not do it. Now, what is that exactly? If you're putting the bundle down for schach, is that the oraita or the rabbanan? That's the rabbanan. It's only because of gezerat otzar. Really, midoraita is kasher lemehadrin min ha'mahadrin. It's completely kasher midoraita. Why not? I'm putting it for schach. I didn't forget it up there. Yeah, but if you do this, you may come to the case of forgetting it up there, where you didn't put it down, lay it down for schach originally. But I'm doing it for schach now. So you see, this is only the rabbanan. Right?
What does otzar mean?
Otzar means storage. I'm storing it up there to dry. Right? So says the Gemara, the language is mashma only lechatchila. The mesachin mishum gezerat otzar is because of a gezerat rabbanan, because we are concerned you're gonna end up leaving it up there to dry and just use it for schach. And then says the Gemara, ha de oraita. Shapir dami. According to the Torah level, it would be amazing. It would be good. Hatam, there, in the case of the gadish, in the case of digging into a haystack, the language was, you remember the language? Was eina sukkah. It's not a sukkah. It doesn't say en mesachachin, right? En osin sukkah. It says eina sukkah. It's absolutely zero. It's nothing. Midoraita is nothing. Midorabanan for sure, but midoraita is nothing. So that is a case of the oraita. What is the case of the oraita in gadish? Is when you dug in and you didn't touch the schach. You just literally dug into it, you emptied the middle parts, right? And you did not touch the top. That from the Torah level is invalidated because of taseh v'lo min ha'asui. Okay. Afilu diavad midoraita nami ein sukkah. Even midoraita is not a sukkah. Third line says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. Sichecha bechitzin zecharim keshera benekevot psula. Imagine you're an archer, or you're in business of making arrows, and you have thousands of pieces of wood available that are made for arrows. Is it kasher? Can I make a schach with them or not? Now, arrows, back in the day at least, the way they made them was two main pieces. There was the straight wood, right, the solid piece of wood, and then there was the metal part, the arrowhead. Now, there are two different ways to make this. You have to attach those two together, right? And you're not going to glue them. So the way to make them is either you will have an indentation in the metal, a hole in the metal, and you have a narrow part sticking out of the wood that would fit exactly inside that indentation, that hole, and it would tightly attach together. Or you would have the other way around. You would have a hole, an indentation in the wood, and the metal piece would have a zachrut, a piece sticking out that would fit in to the hole, right? Either of them would be fine as far as the industry of bows and arrows, right? Now, halakhically speaking, it makes a very big difference as far as tum'ah is concerned, because you remember, we discussed this before, that the schach has to be, Daf Yud Aleph, right, our previous Mishnah, the schach has to be made out of something that grows from the ground, has to be detached from the ground, so the wood of the arrow checks both of those boxes, but it also has to be not mekabel tumah. It can't be susceptible to tumah. Now, what becomes susceptible to tumah? If you make a kli that has a bet kibul, if it has room to accept anything, mashmauti, it would be considered a kli that's mekabel tumah. So therefore, if you have the type of arrow that the wooden part has the indentation in it, which the metal goes in it, that indentation makes it a kli. Now the entire wood is mekabel tum'ah and is rendered invalid, the oraita level, for being a schach. But if you have the other type of arrow, that the indentation, the hole is in the metal part, and the wood just has a extra piece sticking out, that still is considered pshutei kli es. It's considered a regular piece of wood, still.
What about bamboo?
Huh?
What about bamboo that has a hole?
Yeah, but the whole of the bamboo is a very good question. The whole of the bamboo is a natural part of it. You did not make the hole for accepting anything. But if you took a bamboo, and again, every part of it has its own connection inside is closed. And if you took and you made a hole inside, and we professionally made it as a in Japan they use them as cups, and there's all kinds of different things for food serving and so. If you did that, then absolutely it would be, right? So says the Gemara, that makes all the difference between these two, whether the chetz, the arrow, would be kasher for schach or would be pasul for schach. So says the Gemara, sichecha bechitzin zecharim, so we call them the male and female, so to speak. The chitzin zecharim would be kasher, and nekevot would be pasul. Zecharim keshera pshita, says the Gemara, pashut. Zecharim, why wouldn't it be kasher? Right? It's pshutei kli es. Why would you think even that it is not kasher? Says the Gemara, very simple. Why? Ma'udatema, we are in the world, today's Amud is an Amud of being concerned about everything, right? It's making gezerah. That is the topic of the day. So I would have thought to myself, you should be concerned that if I allow Reuben to use the zcharim, he's going to say, what's the difference? Arrow is arrow. Now the little hole makes a difference. Come on. And he's going to come to use the nekevot as well. Therefore, I would have thought that we shouldn't even allow the zcharim, kamash malan, that we do let it. People understand the difference between these two, and it's fine. So says the Gemara, fine, I get it. But nekevot psula, but for sure what is simple is that nekevot are pasul. That is mamash pashut. Why do you even have to say that when you have a hole, when you have an indentation in a wood, it's going to be pasul? Of course it's going to be pasul. Why would I think it's not pasul that you have to tell me? Says the Gemara, Ma'u detema, bet kibul ha'asui lemalot, lav shemeh, bet kibul kamash malan. You would have maybe thought that a bet kibul, an indentation, a hole, that is made to be filled in eternally, right? This is not a cup that you fill in and empty. This is not a plate that you fill in and empty. This is something that it's made for 5 minutes. The hole is there for 5 minutes. And then you screw put the metal part in, and forever it's going to now be filled in, that hole. It is created to accept something and just keep it in there. So I would have thought that that hole is not a hole, really. It's not a bet kibul. Maybe bet kibul is only when you make a kli that you fill in, you empty. It's used for its space for all the time. But this is not for all the time. You fill it in once and for all. Maybe that's not considered bet kibul, and the Gemara says that's why we need to tell you that no, yes, it is considered bet kibul. It is considered mekabel tum'ah, and you cannot use that for your schach. That is the chidush. Bezrat Hashem will continue in the next day.